Hi, Mormon Enlightenment. How are you doing? I just ate dark chocolate. I had some in my teeth. So, dark chocolate. Excuse me. Did this podcast for NYU, and they wanted me to do it to talk about sexual abuse and to encourage sexual abuse victims to come forward. They have a whole program there at the school for the student body in case people have ever suffered sexual abuse. They're encouraging people to come forward and to get help, and it was all good and positive. One of the things on that, the gal that interviewed me, she's been in law enforcement, she's been a private investigator, she's dealt in that field for her whole career. Really cool lady, and she actually just reached out and found me, and but anyway, it was kind of this moment on the podcast where she was asking me why on earth I would, why would I meet with him? Why would I try to get the recording and so forth? And then I said, well, I was really curious. I wanted to know if there was other victims. And then we got to talking, digging deeper, and she reminded me. She reminded me of why I connected with Brian McKnight and Truth and Transparency way back when I did. And I remembered what that was in that moment. I remembered that I had heard from one of Sterling Van Wagenen's colleagues that he had done all the temple videos. And then I heard from one of Sterling Van Wagenen's relatives that he had done the temple videos. And so that was really unsettling for me, because you got to keep in mind that when the abuse happened, my parents did report it to the church. They did report it to the bishop, and then the stake president at the time was Harold Brown, and he was the head. He was a psychiatrist. He was the head of the church social services for the entire church. And so what's upsetting is not only did they didn't offer me any kind of counseling or support, and he was a church employee at the time. He was working at BYU at the time, and they didn't offer him any kind of counseling and support. And beyond that, they knew that he was he was a known pedophile. And what did they do? They continued to use him and elevate him and work with him and have him do their work for church films and things of that nature. And then ultimately it was around 2014 that they used him to do those 3 most recent sets of the temple videos. In fact, he told his family that he felt so strongly the Spirit, and that the brethren were so inspired, and that he was truly forgiven, and that that was his experience, that he felt redeemed to be permitted and to be entrusted to do that sacred work. He felt redeemed, and he knew that the brethren were so inspired. And when I heard all this, I just thought, now it to make matters worse, he actually, while he was telling his own family that I feel so inspired, I feel so redeemed, I know that this means that I'm forgiven for anything I've done wrong, and while he was saying that, it was around the same time that he was abusing this other victim that eventually came forward. So I remember when I became aware that the church had just continually elevated him and leveraged him and used him. And then for them to use him, I told her on the podcast, I said, you don't realize, unless you're Mormon, you don't realize, they treat that work, those temple ordinances, like they're so sacred, so special. For them to use a known pedophile to do their most sacred work, what does that say? What does that say about them? And I remember that's when I reached out to Brian McKnight, who's a mutual friend, who I have a mutual friend with, and I was connected with Ryan McKnight, and Ryan, we shared all this with him, and he was, obviously his mission is to, create exposure, to bring about transparency with religious organizations, and Ryan helped me so much with all of his resources and his research, and unbelievable, amazing guy, both him and Ethan. So check out what they do at Truth and Transparency. But I was telling Crystal, like, going back and talking about this stuff is so heavy for me emotionally. It just is so emotionally draining. You feel like it's weird, man. You feel like you just like ran. I mean, I never run a marathon, but you just feel physically beat when you talk about this stuff. And I know a lot of you can relate. But yeah, it was kind of interesting to see her feedback. Like, wait a minute, like, why didn't the church do this? Why didn't the church do that? Why didn't they offer you support? Why didn't they go to the police? Why didn't they, and it's just like, yeah, because there's some pretty serious problems going on there, and that's why one of the main reasons we tried to tackle it. Anyway, if any of you have ever suffered abuse of any kind, just know that there's a lot of us out there. I was saying on the podcast, like, there's real power in, find people you can trust, and talk to them about how you're feeling. Talk to them about, if it's a safe space, talk to them about what happened. I found real healing in being open about that. I found a lot of healing around that. I found that it's done something for me in terms of, my identity, my ability to connect with others, my ability to open up overall, let people see what I am, who I am. So there's some real power in that, and there's some safe people out there, and and if you need help, make sure you get the help you need. There's lots of resources around that too. And I love you. Know that, if you've ever been in that position, my heart goes out to you. And, I know Crystal's suffered such. So many people have. And together we're strong.